So you can check back each day for new appointments that are 18 days out. The appointment hours are between 8 and noon and 1 to 3 daily. We have 16 staffers working, giving us a total of 125 appointments a day. The system will allow you to schedule, reschedule, and cancel appointments and add appointment information to your own digital calendar. It's got one of those downloads, and you can download that and save it. If you forget your appointment information, you can go to the website where this is scheduled, enter your email address, and it can email you your appointment information. And it also sends reminders to you the day before your appointment is scheduled so you don't forget about it. Now, with respect to the Continuing Assistance Act, remember that was the extra $300 a week as well as extra weeks on the pandemic-related claims. The $300 a week, we believe that we've got the programming done and we are testing it, and that should start pushing out next week. And as far as the PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation claims, and the Pandemic Extended Unemployment Compensation claims, those were the ones that had only 39 weeks and ran out Christmas week. Federal Congress gave us an extra 11 weeks. Those are now programmed in, so we believe that you can go in and start claiming those within the next week. Even if you had exhausted your previous weeks, you should not have to open a new claim. Again, look for any more information on the Kentucky Career Center website. Now, last, I know everyone is always anxious to hear about our numbers and our progress. We've changed the way, and we've done some looking at our numbers to give a more accurate context for you for the work done by our stellar staff at the Office of Unemployment Insurance since the beginning of the pandemic. Just giving you some top line totals. More of this information will be available from the Labor Cabinet, but the total claims numbers we've received, and mind you, this total number includes duplicates, is 1,539,784. Now that only includes about 665,000 actual different unique claims for about 600,000 unique claimants. The number of claims we have paid or are payable to date is almost 548,000. The number of claims denied is about 27,500. The number that are pending with issues, and these are the stops that people have heard about, is a little over 90,000. But those with no identity issues, again, we talked about this a little last week, where we believe we have a large number of fraudulent claims. So when you segregate ones out where we can't confirm the identity of the claimant, we are only left with 23,236 or so claims. And we have paid a total of over $5.4 billion to Kentuckians. Just a few notes about those numbers. Again, that top line number, that 1.5 million, includes duplicate claims. Again, unique claims are only about 665,000 claims that are representing about 600,000 claimants. Our claims information comes in quarterly. Our denial information is aggregated quarterly, so we only have that up to the end of September. But our claims denial rate is only about 4% of our claims right now, which is which is a much lower number than before the pandemic. And some of that is related to the pandemic-related programs. We're happy we've been able to provide that assistance to Kentuckians. The pending claims that have not been processed, where we can affirm an identity of a person, now only represents 3.5% of the total claims that we have received. And on top of that, almost half of those came in October and November. So those aren't even very aged claims. So we believe we've made a good dent in the backlog of claims that we had at the beginning of the pandemic in light of the large number of claims at that point. One note too, our unemployment rate has been consistently lower than the national average through the pandemic, except for one aberrant month where we were only a tiny bit above. Many months we've been significantly lower than the national rate. So we're very proud of both the assistance that we've been able to give Kentuckians as well as our ability to keep our economy going during the pandemic. And I'll send it back to the governor.
All right. A lot of information today. We'll get to questions, starting with Stu Johnson from WEKU.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Governor. Jim Gray mentioned in his presentation that the specific site for the regional drive-through vaccinations is not being announced yet or hasn't been pinned down. But do you anticipate a number the week in early February? And what about people traveling to these sites? Will you have a number of people signing up from other counties to go to these sites?
We don't have a firm number to announce, but it's going to be sufficient to have enough regional centers around the state to where everyone can travel by driving just a reasonable distance to get to it. It will not be limited, the signups, to individuals of just that county. It'll operate a lot like our larger testing sites that we have, with an ability to sign up either online or through a phone call, but not to sit in a big long line of cars, to have a general time where you can get in, get that vaccine, be monitored in a waiting area before you go on your way. We see the federal government recommending this. It was in our state, our weekly state report. We see other states moving in this direction as well. Shelby Smithson from WKYT.
Hi, Governor. We continue to get questions from viewers about why some people who are not in those highest priority groups are getting the vaccine. Can you explain again why that might happen as we continue to move forward with distribution, especially now with this new partnership?
Right. So we have two goals. One is to try to vaccinate people on the priority list. That's do everybody in 1A, healthcare workers, before 1B, 70 and up, and before 1C, 60 and up, and those with conditions that would make them more vulnerable. Those aren't everybody in those groups, but that's one goal. But the other is 90% of what you get each week in doses have to get in people's arms. And by having that urgency, it's going to push people to different levels at different times, depending on how much they have pulled out of the refrigerator, depending on who doesn't show up at different times, depending on whether or not they still have more doses and it's day 5 or day 6, and they need to get them in people's arms. That's that 90% is absolutely critical. And so the overall answer to people is we've got to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible to reach herd immunity to defeat this virus. And even if you see some people that are maybe getting it out of turn, most of the time the reason is doing that sometimes is going to be what's required to keep the pace up to get to immunity. So everybody who gets it, regardless of when they get it, are one step closer to getting immunity. One other reason was we initially sent vaccine out really based on numbers of hospitals and different areas, and not necessarily size of the population. And we're adjusting that now. That's allowed some areas to already do all their school systems, while others haven't gotten through all the healthcare workers. But the real key, because we all want to defeat COVID, and we want to keep everybody alive while we do it, the real key is, I think, the pace of vaccination, which, last week I was very proud of. I hope we do as well, if not better, this week. Karen Czar, WUKY.
Governor, I know you can't necessarily give details, and you've talked about security at the Capitol. Are there any other areas of the state that you've had word on that may cause concern as far as safety or security as we head towards the inauguration? Thank you.
Most of concerns that have been identified have been here in Frankfurt. The FBI particularly has, I don't know if they put out or if somebody had it and put it out threats made on virtually all 50 state capitals. We did announce today that the National Guard has been activated to help where needed, but I don't want to give these domestic terrorists our game plan. We'll be ready, and we'll be ready. That's my commitment, to keep everybody safe. But again, this is our moment, folks. I said the other day, you can't play patty cake with would-be militias that want to overthrow the government. The paradigm has entirely shifted. Before 9/11, when somebody hijacked a plane, you let them do it because they would land it in another country and negotiate a return of the hostages. That totally changed after 9/11. Now we cannot view these things as simply people who dress up like it's Halloween and want to seem tough and then go home. We saw an attack on our nation's capital. We have seen kidnapping plots exposed in Michigan. We've got to acknowledge what it is, domestic terrorists, and we got to treat it as such. Tom Latek from Kentucky Today.
Good afternoon, Governor, and Virginia. Unemployment today took a huge spike nationally. Are we seeing a similar spike here in Kentucky?
We'll need to get the latest numbers. We have been typically under what we'd see nationally, but generally you see patterns that if it's up significantly across the country, it's going to be up at least some here in Kentucky. So Tom, we'll get those to you. Mike Valenti from WLEX. Maybe we lost Mike. Michael Cadigan from Spectrum.
Hello, Governor Beshear. If Kroger is helping with drive-through vaccinations, will all Kroger workers get the vaccine before that rollout? Grocery store workers were deemed essential by the state back in the springtime.
And my understanding is that they will get it during 1C, being able to sign up like anybody else out there. So all food service workers are in 1C. That'll include grocery store workers, those who work in restaurants as well. It's a big list of essential workers. You can find that on kycovid19.ky.gov to see if you are a part of it. Remember, 1C are 60 and up. Essential workers is defined by the CDC, and those that have conditions that could make them more vulnerable to COVID, again, on kycovid19.ky.gov. Dr. Stack, did I miss anything? Yes, and the vaccinators are healthcare personnel. So if Kroger are hiring new, and they are, they're hiring a bunch, healthcare personnel to give the vaccines, they'll get it as a part of 1A, hopefully before they start vaccinating other people. Ben Tobin from the Courier-Journal.
Thank you, Governor. Regarding the vaccination of educators, what percentage of K-12 personnel in the Commonwealth have agreed to receive the vaccine? And what message do you have for those who have declined to receive the vaccine?
I'm not sure that I've seen the overall number, though I think the Kentucky Department of Education put it out. And if I recall correctly, but if they have, we'll get it to you. It was in the 70 some percentile. And what we're seeing right now is just because if that's the case, let's play with numbers. If 70% have said yes and 30% have said no, we're finding that 30% aren't all hard no's. They are, I want to see other people take it. In the long-term care setting, we're seeing folks that have originally said no coming around and then wanting the vaccine. So I think it's important that we don't think about this as pro and anti-vaccine. Sure, there are some folks that are anti-vaccine. There are some that are just nervous. There are some that want to talk to their doctor about their own conditions, and there are some that want to see other people take it before they do. But I believe the educator community, the percentage is probably higher than the overall population. But any educator that doesn't get it in this priority round can then still get it wherever they would otherwise fall, 1C, 2, et cetera. But at that point, if they've said no up to now, they've got to qualify by age or condition for a second shot for a second opportunity at the vaccine. Chris Otts from WDRB.
Thank you, Governor. Last week, I asked about the Continued Assistance Act. What can people do, or what guidance would you offer them? They want to know what they're supposed to do to receive those benefits. Ms. Cubbage gave kind of a helpful overview of whether you need to file a new claim or not, depending on different situations. But we were told that this information would be on the website. Unless I'm looking in the wrong place, I don't see it on the website still as of today. You wouldn't believe how many people I've got asking for guidance on what they're supposed to do in that regard. And then a second question on unemployment. Have you decided whether to extend the relationship with Ernst & Young? And looking back on it, considering that there is still a backlog 6 months after that started, would you say that that has been a success?
Yes, the relationship has been a success. They can show it with numbers. I think we've got about 6,000 adjudications that they had finalized that we've got to get out the door. A lot of hard work. We are still evaluating the future need for that contract. We lose people when we don't have them working with us. I'll turn the other question over to Amy. We do want to be helpful. We want to get information on the website. I know one challenge has been we have been bitten in the past when we get out in front of federal guidance, and then we've been bitten in the past when federal guidance has changed. So our commitment is to get it right. We don't want people to have to wait longer for dollars, but we want to ensure that everybody who's going to get dollars gets them under the new guidance. So, Amy?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that question. That guidance should be going up no later than Monday. It's in the process of being drafted. We want to make sure we have it as clear as possible, and then we'll have that up on the website, in particular for PUA and PEUC claimants, so that they understand whether or not because I think we've talked about this in the past. If people open a new claim when they should have just claimed weeks, it can hang up your claim. So we want to make sure that people get it right. So we'll get that very clear guidance up on the KCC website. Should be no later than Monday.
All right, and then we'll put out a release as that goes up so that Chris and everybody else is notified, can look at it, can evaluate it, and also get it out to those that are coming to them for help. And we appreciate any help that those in the media or anywhere else are providing to people who need it. Al Cross from Kentucky Health News.
And Governor, following up on Ben Tobin's question, what would you say to the people who are still reluctant to take the vaccine? You said the general public percentage was smaller than the educators, so we've got a significant number of people out there. And have you given any consideration to requiring any class of individuals to get the vaccine, to require it?
At this point, we don't anticipate any requirements for individuals to get it. We believe over time and within the schedule of when we're going to get vaccines, that we're going to see more and more people as they see others getting the vaccine, being willing to do it. I want to make sure when we communicate with those that right now don't want to get it, that we're sensitive to folks that are nervous about it and not just saying no, and knowing that we have some time to get those that are nervous about it willing to get it. What I'd say to them is it's safe. I've taken the vaccine, but more than that, I watched one of the people I love most in the world, my wife, get the vaccine standing right next to me. Maybe in the last a couple of weeks with all the terroristic threatening that's out there, I realize more every day how special having her in my life is. And and to be confident enough in this vaccine to recommend it to her. I recommend this to my family. I recommend this to people I care about, and I've taken it myself. And I think what you're going to see as we move forward is more influencers, faith leaders, and others stepping out and working with us. I think, Al, you once told me that we need more voices than just mine. That's probably good advice. And so we're going to have that as we move forward with educating and encouraging those that maybe don't have enough information too. You know, at a time when you poll this, that some people only get their news from Facebook, you could understand that they don't have the information that they need to say yes to it. So we need to find people that are where they are at, that communicate with them in everyday life and can communicate how safe the vaccine is. Now, as we're going, there'll also be a point where everybody will know somebody that has had the vaccine and can watch and can see that they are just fine. John Charlton from WHAS.
Hey, Governor, thanks. Hope you and your family are well and stay safe. This might be something more for Ms. Cubbage. She had mentioned that 16 staffers are manning the phone, so to speak, with these phone appointments. How many of them are actually specialists who can actually fix claims? On top of that, how many claims have been processed on average per day and per week? And with the fraudulent claims, could they be mistakes or ID issues? And if so, what's being done to let those folks know?
All right, we're going to send those 5 questions over to Amy.
Okay, hopefully I got all those down. I'm not sure I did. I do believe the 16 staffers are people who can fix claims. So those, you should be able to get the assistance you need if you make one of those appointments. Now, the average per day and per week, I don't know that, but we can drill down and see if we can get that. ID issues, whenever a claimant files a claim and if they fail initial validation, there is an automatic online validation process where you answer some questions about your history. And if you fail that, you were given notice that you failed and you were given the opportunity to upload documents. You have a certain amount of time to upload those documents. We have not been strictly enforcing that, so people have been able to do it. We are going to start moving to a process where we are trying to close out some of the old claims. So if you don't upload your ID documents that have been requested within the requested amount of time, you will get a denial of your claim. It's called, I won't get into it, it's called a 492 document. It's the written determination we've talked about. That then triggers appeal rights. So there's various levels there where you are given the opportunity to validate online, to upload documents, given multiple opportunities to upload documents. And if you have trouble with that and never do and get a denial, you can establish your identity on appeal. I'm sure I missed one. I apologize for that. We'll send it back to the governor.
Well, thank you to Amy. And to give an example, we have some claims that may be 4 months old that we can't validate the person's identity. We have seen significant fraud across the country. There have been multiple attempts to reach out to, if that is a real person. There's been zero response, and months have passed, and that sits there looking like we're not processing the claim when we can't process it, potentially because the person either abandoned their claim. It could be a duplicate where the person has otherwise gotten their claim approved or denied, or it was somebody who doesn't qualify or doesn't exist filing for it. But if there are folks there where there have been mistakes right now, something needs to happen to their claim to get them in the process to where they can validate their identity. But again, continued efforts to reach out to those claims with identity issues continue, but these are the types of claims that the Department of Labor told us that we've got to be actively monitoring and going through this process. Alex Ebert from Bloomberg.
Thank you, Governor, for taking our question. Last week, we saw an angry mob enter the U.S. seat of government. What is going to stop that from happening in Frankfurt, and how is the state going to do a better job at being prepared from stopping the worst from happening?
Yeah, I think we saw more than a mob. I think we saw domestic terrorists attack the U.S. Capitol. Never thought I'd see something like that in my lifetime. It's in the War 1812 because those weren't British troops; those were Americans who were attacking their own country. We are prepared. We will have the man and the woman power. We will not make the mistakes that were made in D.C. And we know that if people show up to try to do that here, they are not a rally, right? They are people who are bent on overthrowing our government. Alex Akisto from Lexington Herald Leader.
Hi, Governor. So CVS and Walgreens have only administered 29% of the total doses they've received at long-term care facilities. I think I heard earlier in the update that there are only 23 facilities left to get their first dose. My question is unwillingness among residents and staff at these places to get the vaccine contributing to the slow pace of rollout? Secondly, how will you ensure educators are contacted by their school district about what steps they need to take to get a vaccine? Can you sort of explain what that process will look like? Thanks.
Sure. So the doses that we show that have been provided to CVS and Walgreens also include second doses. So when we get through all of them and then multiply by 2, that will be the number of doses from Pfizer that they will give. You're right, though, that it looks like there are going to be a certain number that are there that do represent individuals we at least believed were in long-term care as residents or as staff that said no. So yes, it does. If we schedule 12 clinics in one day, and you are limited in many ways because you have to go to the clinic. You can't set something up where people are coming to you when it's long-term care. And a certain percentage of people say no, then you are going to do fewer vaccines that day. So yes. Now, when we are finished with that program, those that declined, if they want it later, are going to have to get it through the regular process. So we will have and use any amount that is left over for those that are willing to do it. And the second piece of the question, Alex, you want to? I know it was a 2-part question. They were 2 different topics.
It was about how will you ensure educators? Yeah, go ahead.
So our superintendents began planning for this more than a month ago when we had made that priority. They have already worked up a plan with their schools. They already know the number of people that have said yes to it. We'll be reaching out to each of the superintendents in the coming days, telling them who their provider is going to be for their school district and telling them the dates that it's going to reach them. At that point, they and that provider take control of that plan to get people in and out. So it'll be contact the superintendent who will put out that communication, but understand that he or she may not have the information right now, and this is going to take a couple days to make it happen. But it's exciting, and again, we need patience. If everybody in this everybody in K through 12 who's willing getting their first shot, hopefully by the end of the first week of February is beating our initial deadline entirely. It's finishing the first half before the projected start date. So even if your school district is getting it that week, please know that the pace is really significant.